Hey everybody, and welcome back to A Degree from YouTube. In this video, we're going to do a backsplash tile project using mother of pearl. It's going to take place in the master and guest bathroom, including a kitchen. This is completely DIY, and by the time you're done watching this, you should be able to do this for yourself without hiring any professionals. Now, the first thing I want to mention here is that everybody's dealing with different scenarios as far as their backsplash tile. Sometimes you're dealing with new construction, old construction where you've just demoed, similar to what I'm dealing with right here. You can see that I'm cleaning up the walls, kind of flattening them out, anything that's sticking or protruding out. And you'll see eventually I have to completely smooth this entire wall off before I even think about tiling something like mother of pearl, which is very thin and fragile. For this project, I decided to go with Mapei's Caraflex SG in white, which is an extra smooth mortar, and this product worked very well throughout the entirety of this project. As you see me mixing up the mortar here, this is actually my very first time using this product, and I have to say I highly recommend it. It is very versatile and very user-friendly. Not only did I use this product for setting the tile, but I also use it for smoothing out rough surfaces. If you need to create a smooth surface before tiling like I did here, this product is great for that. You can use it up to 1/2 inch thick, but just beware that each batch you mix lasts about 30 to 45 minutes as far as working time before it starts to harden. Moving on to the other side of the kitchen, you can see where I previously demoed the old tile backsplash. This too will need to be smoothed out with mortar before we install our mother of pearl tiles. The granite tops and the cabinets are brand new construction, so it's best to protect them by taping off the edges. It also allows for easier cleanup after applying your mortar. If you're curious to know, I'm using painter's tape on the edges. On the granite, I'm using blue painter's tape. This has about a 14 to 21 day clean removal period, which basically means that when you remove the tape, it'll come off cleanly versus ripping up in a bunch of pieces or harming the surface of whatever you apply that tape to. Now, on the cabinets, these cabinets are a little bit more delicate with the vinyl sheet covering, so I use a delicate painter's tape, and that's what the purple usually represents. The purple has a clean removal period of about 60 days. Now, honestly, I can talk about painter's tape forever. There's different uses for different colors. Now, we just went over blue, and we just went over purple, not even in depth, but there's also orange, there's green, there's yellow, there's light brown, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but painter's tape is a great tool if you use it for the right reasons and the right application for the right job. Now I'm almost done smoothing out a smooth surface on this wall where all the rough edges were. And I have a really bright light on the wall shining, and you can see a lot of imperfections. Don't worry about that. Remember, we're not professionals, we're DIYers. I will show you how to make the smooth surface even smoother shortly. As you can see, now that we're done smooth coating our rough surfaces, it is time to remove our tape. As promised, I told you I would show you how to smooth out our rough surfaces with mortar and then make those smooth surfaces even smoother. And this is how you do it. Simply sand with a very rough 60 grit paper or block. Then repeat that process with 120 grit, then 220 grit. At the end of this, you'll have a pile that needs to be vacuumed up of mortar residue. After successfully smoothing out our walls, we are now ready to finally lay our first sheets of mother of pearl tile. The first thing we need to do is figure out our cuts. Now, to make my cuts cleanly, I used a wet tile saw. Now, you may be thinking immediately, I don't have a wet tile saw. Well, guess what? I bought this wet tile saw by Ryobi for $100 at Home Depot. Now, it is a lot better to spend the money in this, invest in yourself as a DIYer, than spend the extra hundreds, if not thousands, you would spend on a professional. Rack up your tools, rack up your inventory, and call yourself a true DIYer. Most likely, you're watching a video just like this right now for education. You now have a degree from YouTube, and you always have. Now, when it came to actually applying this mother of pearl tile, it is so thin, I decided to use a trowel with thin teeth. Now, the trowel I used came with a 1/4 inch tooth and a gap and depth of 3/8 inch. Now, I use this because this is such a thin material using mother of pearl. As you can see, there are also some special cuts involved regarding the outlets in the wall. Now, those must be taken care of very carefully, and your measurements should be very precise. As a DIYer, mistakes will happen. Now, I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made, but in this particular video, I want to show you exactly what happened. You'll see that I removed some tiles and put some back for better seams. And if you look closely, you can even see the seams, but that will be fixed later in the video. The true biggest mistake I made on this backsplash right here, if you really look closely, is not buying the same batch of tile between the beginning of the project and the end on the specific wall. Now look, on the first 3 layers of the mother of pearl was one batch. On the higher 2 layers was another batch, but you know what? I thought it was maybe the mortar and it dried. And the next morning I woke up, it still was the same exact way. And it was a slightly different texture, a slightly different color. And you know what? The best tip I can give you right now is to buy the same batch. Please buy the same batch of any tile when you're doing a backsplash or any tile job if you want the color to match identically. Now, to make these seams go away and make this look a lot more flawless, we need to grout. And I used a super fine grout by the same company, Madi. Before you grout, make sure to cover all your surfaces and protect them, because grouting is a very messy process. The first thing you want to do is cover all your tile with a nice layer of grout. And you really want to press it in and get the right tool to do this. This is a specialized tool especially made for grout. You want to press it into all the seams, wait about 10 minutes, and take a sponge and wipe it down clean. You don't want to wipe it down with too much water, but you want to go over several times with a light amount of water in the sponge to make sure that all the grout is cleanly removed in every tile. Now, moving on to the master bathroom, you'll notice I have a super clean surface that does not need to be prepped in order to have a smooth surface. So I just went ahead, mixed up my mortar, and went straight into tiling. Quick tip, if you're gonna stop after a long day's work and you do not finish the backsplash tile, please complete an entire row. Do not stop mid-row where you have to join 2 sheets at a later time. The reason for this is because the next day when you have to join 2 tile sheets together, you have to scrape off all the mortar and try to make a solid seam and a solid joint. And you know what? It ends up being very uneven and it can potentially cause you problems in the end. So please just complete an entire row before moving forward. Now, usually the last row at the top of the backsplash, especially in this scenario, tends to be the most difficult. You'll find out as you do projects like these more and more and more that houses aren't perfectly square. So just know that the last row can be fairly difficult sometimes. You probably did nothing wrong, you made all your measurements, but it's just the way it is. After I was finished tiling the master bathroom, it was once again time for grout. Now, in this case with mother of pearl, it is all about grouting just to get rid of the seams between each sheet of mother of pearl. All we want to do is make this look seamless, because mother of pearl itself is a very non-porous tile. Now, going back to the kitchen where we smoothed out our rough surface, it is now time to make that rough surface that we smoothed out even smoother by once again sanding. As you know, sanding makes a very big mess, so make sure you have a shop vac to clean up after yourself. Now it's time to plan out where the tile is going to go. The original tile, as you can see, did not go all the way from the granite to the ceiling, but I thought this would look great, so I went ahead with it. As a part of the prep work, at least in this portion of the project, I also used joint compound. This also seemed to work out very well as far as prepping my surface for what needed to be done. Once again, on this side of the kitchen, I also want to take the tile all the way to the ceiling and wrap it around the window. This is where I drew my line. Now that we have a smooth surface to work with and all our lines are marked, we can finally start tiling the kitchen backsplash. Now, this was probably the most difficult part of the project for me, or at least one of them, due to the amount of custom cuts needed to make this happen. There'll be times during the project where it seems super difficult, especially if you're not a professional and you just don't know where to start, or you're afraid to start or even get this going. But the best thing to do is to dive in. I mean, just don't dive in aimlessly, but put some thought into it and just go for it, because it's not going to get done unless you do. Once you get a flow and rhythm started, everything starts to really come together. Another quick tip here is to take special care when wrapping your tile around outlets and switches. You want to make sure that when you apply the faceplate later, you have a nice, clean look. You know, you might have heard me say something like this earlier in the video, but I think wrapping the tile around this windowsill right here was actually the most difficult part of the project. Now, I keep getting flashbacks as I'm editing this video, and I'm remembering how difficult certain things were or were not, and this was definitely one of them. The amount of knowledge I have wrapping mother of pearl tile around a window like this is pretty much zero, so I kind of just winged it and ended up just wrapping the tile all the way around. And you know, it looks kind of choppy, but my plan in the end was to take a nice diamond blade and cut off all the edges. Before making these cuts around the windowsill, I really wanted to make sure that the mortar behind the tile was fully cured, so I waited till the next day. Meanwhile, you'll just see me cleaning up here really well, and that's very important to do in a project like this. Here you'll see me prepping for the next step of this project. I'll be covering the granite countertops along with the cabinets in order to protect them from the fine cuts I'm about to do, along with the grouting. Cutting into tile makes a lot of dust and shoots out a lot of debris sometimes. And also, as you know, grouting can be a very messy process, and you just want to have easier cleanup in the end. So protect the surfaces you're working on. As you can see, I redrew the line with a regular graphite construction pencil where I need to make my cut. I used a Ryobi brushless cutoff tool to make this happen, and the blade I used was a diamond blade that was actually provided with the tool itself. Once you are done making your cut and you're absolutely sure that you fully penetrated the tile, you want to take a sharp putty knife and scrape off the excess tile and extra mortar that was left behind. There will be a little bit of mortar left over, which you could just sand off before you have to paint or do any other repairs. Also, you may notice that a few pieces of the tile sheets did fall off. I just used a little bit of liquid nails from Home Depot to resecure them. At this point, I was able to take my Ryobi cutoff tool and cut off the remainder of the mother of pearl tile around the windowsill. I did run into a few problems here and there where pieces of tile would chip off from the sheets, but once again I just re-glued them using liquid nails. It's time to do the final stage of this project, which is tiling the backsplash of the guest bathroom. As you can see, there's also a windowsill here as well, where I'll have to wrap the mother of pearl tile around it and make the cuts as needed. Taking a look at the time lapse, you can see that it gets dark and fairly late, so I decided to clean up all the edges of mortar to get prepared for the next day tiling. Immediately I continue where I left off and start wrapping the tile around the windowsill. Now here are two examples that are happening right now in the video that I really want to explain to you guys of what I learned and the mistakes that I made. You'll see here that I'm tiling new sheets of tile over sheets that I cleaned off prior from the previous day, and I realized it made it fairly difficult to join the seams together between the two sheets of tile, so it's best to leave a straight edge and continue your tile from there. Also, If you can take a really close look, you'll see that I used a different batch of tile, and you can almost see a whole entire difference from where I started yesterday to the new tile I applied today. So once again, in order to avoid this problem, the best thing you can do is pick up your tile from the same store and make sure you get the same batch with the same batch number. And that way you know that this tile was made in the same batch and it'll all match. You won't get a slightly different tone. Just like the previous bathroom, doing the last row can be a little bit complicated because you have those angles. Remember that houses aren't built perfectly square all the time. Now it's time to try and achieve a finished look inside the kitchen by grouting. Now remember, when you're dealing with the tile as porous as mother of pearl, you end up wiping most of the grout off. But you know what? It's amazing the kind of finished look you get once you're completed. We're done installing all the tile. I really wanted to show you guys the installation of the mirrors. It really brings out the characteristics of this beautiful mother of pearl tile and gives it a great finish. Hey everybody, if you got this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. And if you really want to support, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you want to see when I drop a video, just hit that bell notification and you'll be notified right away.